I woke up at 3:07 in the morning to a sound that didn't belong in my world. Not thunder, not wind, not an animal. It was metal striking stone over and over, deep, violent impacts that echoed across the lake like gunshots. For half a second I thought I was dreaming, but then my windows rattled and I knew. Someone was destroying something important. I pulled on my boots and ran outside, heart already pounding, and that's when I saw the floodlights. Bright white blinding set up along the shoreline like a crime scene. Men in hard hats were swinging sledgehammers into the stone bridge my great-grandfather built with his bare hands in 1943. Chips of rock flew into the water, dust hung in the air, and standing there calm as if she were watching a landscaping project was the HOA president, arms folded, chin lifted, completely unbothered, while my family's history was reduced to rubble because it blocked her view. My name is Ezra Blackwood. I've lived on this lake most of my life. And until that night, I truly believed that if you followed the rules, respected your neighbors, and stayed patient, things would work themselves out eventually. I believed facts mattered. I believed history mattered. I believed that no one could just show up with money and erase what had stood for generations. That night taught me how wrong I was. That bridge wasn't decorative. It wasn't optional. It wasn't some random pile of rocks. My great-grandfather Silas built it during the Great Depression, hauling every stone himself from a nearby quarry, shaping them by hand, fitting them together, using masonry techniques that modern contractors don't even recognize anymore. 4 generations of my family learned to swim by jumping off that bridge. We carved our initials into the cornerstone over the decades. When my father died, I scattered his ashes from the center span and watched them drift across the water he loved more than anything else. That bridge was my childhood. It was my family's fingerprint on the land. For decades, the lake was quiet. Locals fished in the early morning fog. Kids rode bikes along the dirt roads. People waved. Nobody argued about views or property values because nobody needed to. Then 3 years ago, the bulldozers arrived. Luxury homes started popping up on the North Shore, 47 of them, each bigger than the last, each marketed as exclusive lakefront living. The people who moved in loved the idea of nature, but none of them cared about the reality of it. They brought massive boats, drone cameras, and the kind of confidence that only comes from having never been told no. And at the center of all of it was Vivian Ashworth. Vivian was a former corporate lawyer, which meant she knew how to sound reasonable while doing unreasonable things. She bought a mansion for nearly $3 million and somehow decided that made her the natural authority on everything within eyesight. Within 6 months, she was HOA president. Within a year, she acted like the lake itself answered to her. The first time she confronted me, she didn't knock. She walked straight onto my property wearing spotless designer hiking boots that had never touched dirt. She pointed at the bridge like it offended her personally and said, "This eyesore has to go. It ruins the aesthetic of our community." Our community. She'd lived there less than a year. I tried to explain calmly. I told her the bridge predated the neighborhood. I told her it exceeded modern engineering standards. I told her it was private property. She listened, nodded slightly, smiled that tight lawyer smile, the one people wear when they're already planning how to crush you, and walked away without responding. That's when the letters started. Cease and desist notices. Safety violations. Environmental complaints. All filed through a law firm that billed more per hour than most people make in a day. Inspectors began showing up constantly, poking at stones, taking photos, asking the same questions over and over. Every letter cost money to answer. Every complaint required a professional response. Every response cost more money. 3 months in, I'd already spent over $12,000 just defending something my family had owned for 80 years. At first, I stayed calm. I'm an environmental engineer. Regulations are my world. I believed logic would win. County engineers confirmed the bridge was safe. Reports were written. Evidence stacked up in my favor. None of it slowed her down. Vivian didn't want the truth. She wanted exhaustion. She wanted me broke, frustrated, and ready to give up. The HOA newsletter ran a front-page story calling the bridge a historic hazard. The photos were carefully angled to make it look unstable. Anonymous social media posts started appearing warning about lawsuits and environmental disasters. Neighbors I'd known my entire life stopped making eye contact. Even Dorothy Finch, who'd lived here since before I was born, stopped walking across the bridge because she was afraid it would be used against me. Then the damage started. One morning I found bolts loosened that had been tight for decades. Fresh chisel marks appeared on support stones. Another day my security camera caught an HOA maintenance boat accidentally ramming the bridge supports 5 separate times. When I confronted Vivian with the footage, she smiled and suggested I file an insurance claim. That same week my insurance policy was canceled. That's when I realized this wasn't about a bridge anymore. It was about power. And I was losing. I remember sitting alone at my kitchen table one night, staring at a stack of legal bills, asking myself if I was the problem. Wondering if I was being stubborn. Wondering if holding onto a bridge was worth destroying my savings, my sanity, my future. I thought about selling. I thought about walking away. I thought about letting her win just so the noise would stop. And I hated myself for thinking that. The turning point came from a shoebox. After my dad passed, I inherited a box full of old documents I never bothered to read. Deeds, maps, letters, receipts. Out of desperation, I finally opened it. And buried at the bottom under decades of dust was a single sheet of yellowed federal letterhead dated March 15, 1943. A permit. A federal permit granting the Blackwood family exclusive perpetual authority to construct, operate, and maintain water control structures in Copper Creek Valley. I read it 3 times before it sank in. My great-grandfather didn't just build a bridge, he built the dam. The lake existed because of infrastructure my family controlled. The permit predated every HOA rule, every zoning ordinance, every regulation Vivian was trying to weaponize. Under federal water rights law, older permits outrank everything that comes after. I wasn't defending a bridge. I owned the lake. The weight of that realization hit me hard. 47 families had built their dreams on water they assumed was permanent. And one woman had spent 3 years trying to erase my family without ever checking who actually held the power. The court ruling came fast. Emergency injunction. Demolition authorized. Vivian celebrated like she'd won the war. Her crew returned Monday morning with heavier equipment ready to finish what they started. That same morning I drove up to the old control shed my great-grandfather built into the hillside. Manual gates, steel cables, no electronics, no overrides. Just engineering built for a world that assumed things might go wrong one day. I opened the gates, slowly, precisely, legally. By the next morning the lake was lower. By the second day, boats tilted awkwardly. By the third, docks sat in mud and panic spread faster than any rumor Vivian ever planted. At the emergency HOA meeting, I stood in front of everyone holding that permit. Vivian screamed that I was destroying the community. The sheriff disagreed. She was arrested that morning for bribery, witness intimidation, and conspiracy charges that don't disappear with money. The demolition order didn't matter anymore. The bridge still stood. That night I walked across the bridge alone, listening to the water settle back into place, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Relief, because some things are worth defending. And here's the truth. Most HOAs never want you to learn. You can buy houses, you can buy influence, you can even buy fear, but you can't buy history, and you can't bully the people who were there first.